East, Brown, and down. Let's open the black book. Hey, yo, what's up, everybody? It's me, Joey P, Joe Pisapia, and welcome to the Fantasy Black Book right here on the Brawl Network. Black. It's a very black day for Scott Bogman and the Welsh, and me, Joe Pisapia. We come to you every week talking all things fantasy, and we've had a great a back-to-back triple-header NFL wildcard weekend. Again, I say great from the perspective of the fan who now has no stake in the game, just enjoying life, enjoying football. One of us here, obviously, is not as happy, and rightfully so. I want to give him a platform to really kind of unburden his soul, because I'm sure there's a lot of rage here for Mr. Black and Gold, Scott Bogman. So, Welsh, before we get to Boggs, I figure it's good that you and I talk first, just to make sure that we think this is still a good idea, and we think that Scott's in a good place in order to do this, because I watched this game last night with my kids, and my kids could not stop laughing and made me rewind about 3 or 4 times the first play of this game, because they thought it was the funniest thing they've ever seen. They've never seen anything like that because they're kind of new to football, but it was a tough night, no doubt about it. But how are you feeling after this back-to-back triple-header wildcard weekend, which I love the 6-pack. I thought it was great.
I thought it was great. I thought they did it great. I'm very excited to talk about the Nickelodeon game. I think that's where everything was at. But I will say, Bogman is killing me. We are available on Brawl's YouTube. You can check us on the Brawl YouTube right now. And Bogman is very stoic, is very up on the microphone. And Bogman, as we love you, Joe, right when we got on before you got on, was like, Joe is going to be so annoying in this episode. And I was like, no, he's not. I'm like, Joe's going to be great. It's going to be fine.
I'm not being annoying. Look, you got to it's a huge story.
The first 2 minutes of this podcast, Joe, you have poked no less than 4 times, and I can see Bogman's face. And I'm wrong, Bogman. I'm going to call it. I'm wrong. I can see the anger boiling. So
you got to keep it real. Look, when the Patriots lose things, I've been teased so many times by you guys and stuff like that. And Bogman's a real fan. Like I've had a lot of Pittsburgh Steeler friends and family who were texting with me last night, and I'm sure the same sentiments are the ones Bogman had, which is like, I'm not surprised. Scott Bogman is the person who told me time and time again over the last 2 months what's going on with the Steelers. And let's just jump right into it, because people probably don't realize this, but I went and dug up the exact number because I wanted to see it. On the year, the Pittsburgh Steelers have 1,351 rushing yards as a team. That is awful. That is dead last.
Where does that rank? Oh,
dead last. And for as much as the league is a passing league, as much as an offensive output league, in January, you have to play defense and run the football. And if you can do those things effectively, like the Ravens did, like the Cleveland Browns did, if you can do those things, that works in January still. And I think if you look at some of those teams that moved on, I'll give you another, like the Rams, the terrible, awful, annoying Rams. They ran the football efficiently and played defense, and that's what happened. And look,
you gotta have both sides, though. You gotta have both sides, because it didn't work for the Titans because they don't play defense.
No, that's true. Right. You do have to have both sides. And the Steelers have defense, but they can't run the football. And I think that, there's a moment in there, and they were on 4th and 2. I think it was, or whatever they were, where it was, it was a 3rd and 2 or something like that. And they had an empty backfield.
4th and 1, and they punted.
No, not that. That's something we'll get to later. But there was a moment in the first half where it was a 3rd and 2. And I turned to my cousin, who was also watching the game with us, and I said, there's an empty backfield in a 3rd and 2 in a playoff game right now. Like, I get it, you're behind, but
more successful. They ran Derek Watt twice on 1-yard runs, which was just the overall effort was completely pathetic from Pittsburgh last night. And it started from the very jump. The very first play of the game, like, your new evil Patriot fangirls. Wanted to watch 8 million times. Right.
What was that line you said at the top, Joe? What was that? Like you opened the show with? What
East, Brown, and down. that was funny.
That's a really good. That's a really good line. But I just wanted to reiterate it.
When you go to the playoffs almost every year, you feel this almost every year. I hadn't felt it for 2 years, so this one hurts worse than normal.
Sure. No, I understand.
That's just the way it is. But from the first snap of the game, it was almost exactly like the Broncos Seahawks Super Bowl. Remember where they snapped the ball right over Peyton Manning's head and Seattle scored? Yeah, it was all downhill from there. I mean, the Browns let Pittsburgh back in, so it made my night terrible because I knew we were losing at 28-0, and then midway through the third quarter, I was thinking, they got a shot. I don't think they're going to do it, but they got a shot. But then not going for it on that 4th and 1 from midfield and taking the delay game, and then the Browns scoring, 3 plays later, over. Done.
Well, Boggs, if I could just follow up and then I'll turn it back to you, Welsh. That first play, you're right, to me was very indicative. That goes over his head. We talked about how Pouncey hasn't played well. We talk about what a low PFF grade he's had at center, and nobody seems to care or notice, which is uncharacteristic. People just take for granted.
Also, just to that point, Joe, Matt Filer had been out for the last 3 weeks. He's the starting left guard. Dotson had played great in his stead, and everything I read and listened to thought Dotson is going to be starting, and come game time, Filer was starting. So Filer is standing right next to Pouncey. They haven't been there for 3 straight weeks, and then that's the first. I mean, I don't remember Pouncey snapping one over Ben's head like that ever. So
no,
it was just a really weird play to start the game.
Well, what was weirder to me was the reaction from Ben Roethlisberger on that play. Because the reaction from Ben Roethlisberger,
Connor had it. Connor thought Ben had it, and
I know, but where's the responsibility?
You got to sell out. You got
to just jump on the ball, kick the ball out, take the safety. You have to react, and I feel like that's kind of indicative of where the Steelers were, looking to the other person, going, "Well, aren't you going to take care of business?" And that is the difference, and that is a problem, and it was kind of just set up for failure ever since then. And 28 points are a record in the first quarter of a wild card game. Yeah, Chubb and Hunt looked very in the playoffs, right? What am I saying? Not even a wild card game. But it was, look, there was definitely that time, and Welsh, I'm sure you felt this too, where you felt like the Browns are going to blow this, because I felt that at one point in that game, like, oh my God, I think they were down 12 at the time or whatever it was. You're like, oh no, are they gonna? And of course you're right. It's that 4th down moment where you don't go for it, and I don't understand why. But I mean, what was your take on this, Welsh, and this Pittsburgh game? Because I mean, obviously it's a huge upset. Obviously the way it happened was terrible, but was it just as simple as the rallying cry of the Browns, us against the world, our coaches out, win one for the Gipper kind of nonsense? Because that team came ready to play, and Pittsburgh just continued to show that team that, rattle off 11 wins continues to, just disappoint and not play up to their abilities in the last run of the season here.
I hate to be the person to do it, and you would probably think, especially if someone was going to be an apologist to it, you would think Bogman would say it, but this game, to me, was more of everything that lacked from Pittsburgh than it was like Cleveland. To all their credit,
loss and not really a Cleveland win. Is that
it kind of is. Well, hold on. Let me finish.
Showed up. Okay, yeah.
Cleveland played maximum. They played top level Cleveland football, but best Cleveland football and best Pittsburgh football are not the same. Best Pittsburgh football is immensely better than the Cleveland Browns. The Browns played at peak level. They were efficient. They established a run. Both running backs, Baker Mayfield didn't have to have the ball in his hands to make all the plays. Jarvis Landry did this stuff. So they played peak. The Steelers played so bad at every level that they lost this. And I had a moment when they were down 28-0, and then they got the James Conner little sweep around touchdown to get their first touchdown in. That was a moment where I was like, here we go. This is where Pittsburgh's going to get going. Start to run the ball a little bit more, because I don't comprehend how Pittsburgh has become such a bad running team. It doesn't even... James Conner is a decent back. I'd love to hear Tomlin sit down for 20 minutes and tell me what caused the inefficiency all year long, let alone in this game. They got their first touchdown on the run. They established that, but their defense played like trash. Again, Cleveland playing peak. Pittsburgh just playing at the bottom. They could not do anything. They couldn't establish a run. They didn't keep Cleveland's defense honest. So Pittsburgh lost this game, I think, at every single angle, while giving credit to Cleveland because they hit every positive point they needed to hit. I just don't understand the running game. It's the biggest baffling mystery. If I was a Steelers fan, I would be walking out of this just shaking my head. What the hell happened to this running game? I mean, Bogman, what do you tell yourself when you look at what happened in this game and season long with what happened with Pittsburgh play calling?
Well, I mean, it's when you take the 30,000 foot view or whatever, the reason that they can't run the ball is it's a couple reasons. Number one is they get rid of the ball so fast out of Ben's hands because they don't want him getting hit because he's made of glass at this point in his career that, defenses are playing up, which doesn't help the run. So when Ben has a history of extending the play and throwing it deep, you get, everybody except for the lineman moving back just a little bit to prepare for a throw. When he is literally the quickest in the NFL to get the ball out of his hands, everyone plays a little bit further up, which doesn't help the run game. Also, the offensive line is much better at protecting the passer than they are run blocking. So,
but you wouldn't believe that. But to your point, you wouldn't believe that based on the play calling, because if that were true, they would let Ben go back for another second or two, create separate. They're not dummies. You got to know that teams are almost able to play some cheating 8-man in the box if he's going to throw it within 1 second. You would think that if the offensive line was pressed for good pass coverage, they would let him get back more and hold on to the ball to create a run game. We watched Mason Rudolph for a whole year last year. They don't want Ben getting hurt. They don't want him taking a big wipeout hit or any of that stuff because we just missed a full season with Ben. Did that change from 11 straight wins and being the best team in the NFL?
No, it changed. It was the same from week 1, but
so teams caught on.
Teams caught on about week 6. Was really when teams caught on.
And let's be honest, too, some of the teams they played,
some of the 100 yards.
And some of the teams that they played early on also, we looked through. And
I remember Benny Snell ran for 130 yards against the Giants week 1.
Right. They also played some lesser teams during that 11-0 stretch. We talked about it on this program. I talked about it on other programs. You guys talked about it on ITL. I mean, they did play as the competition got a little better, and then the timing of the COVID stuff and the changing of schedules. It was a perfect storm.
And then there were injuries in the defense too. Like it just
the Dupree injury. Nobody the two injuries of Bush and Dupree. I don't think people really who didn't watch the Steelers on a weekly basis, maybe the way Boggs does and the way I've been, the way you Welsh, they don't quite grasp how great those two guys were playing and how important that was and how dominant they were. And when you lose your signal caller on defense, it's a huge thing. I remember back like 10 plus years ago, I forget who it was, if it was Eric Weddle or it was somebody on the Ravens at the time who was the signal caller, and he got hurt, and the rest of the season went in the tank for that defense. Yeah. And it's one of those things, like you look at it and you go, you don't realize it, because it's one of those like things that, especially fantasy people, they don't get because they don't pay enough attention. Not everybody plays IDP. Most people don't. So they don't understand. They don't grasp it as much. They go, oh, this is a good defense. This is a bad defense. There's a lot more to defense than just that. I want to play a little game here. Finish the fill in the blank here. Juju Smith-Schuster in 2021 plays for the blank.
New York Jets.
Not the Steelers.
Ben Roethlisberger returns for another season with the Pittsburgh Steelers. True or false?
True.
Last season, true.
Okay. Last one too. It's irksome to Pittsburgh Steelers fans that Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown are both playing next week.
True.
I don't know if it's irksome or they care. I don't know if they care. I honestly don't know that question.
They care.
I don't care about Lev, but I want AB to lose.
Okay. Like I don't even know if it's not even a thing. Like they're annoyed because
really that's interesting to me that you just said that though, because Antonio Brown was a monster on a lot of fronts, but Lev Bell single-handedly, without the same mental illness, caused way more destruction of holding.
Yeah, but Lev Bell is nothing anymore. So if he gets a ring, he knows that he's just a piece of it. AB could be a huge part. So
I see.
And it's with Brady. Nah, screw that.
That's true. I didn't put that combination of it on top of it. Yeah, that's like the cherry on top of the brown sundae, as it were. That is does that as a Steeler fan too, to a certain extent, does it bother you that Big Ben is the personality that won out in all of those fights? I mean, I think the Lev Bell thing, look, you don't want to pay a running back. That's fair. I mean, that's where the league is. But it seems like there's a lot of things that end up with Big Ben whining about something and getting his way and the team not being better off for it.
Yeah, but I mean, he wasn't whining about either one of these guys.
Okay.
AB went nuts, and Bell wanted more money than the Steelers were willing to give him and got less money. If he would have signed that first deal with Pittsburgh, he would have made the most money. I'm glad he didn't, because running backs go downhill so fast. So I'm okay with Bell being gone. And look, in the NFL, it's always going to be about the quarterback. So I'm more than okay keeping Ben. Ben isn't my favorite person in the world. He's never going to be my favorite NFL player, but I do like him as a quarterback. He's a good quarterback still. And he's better than Mason Rudolph. I'm ready for this to be over. So if Ben retires, I'll have there's be no tears. I get it.
All right.
But yeah, I mean, I don't really think it was Ben versus those guys. It was just those, Bell wanted money and AB went crazy. So
that's fair. Look, it's the last one here and we'll move on. Do you think that Mike Tomlin is an overrated football coach?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
I also think every coach is overrated.
Okay. What do you think?
But that's a cheap answer then. Like, don't.
Okay, it's a cheap answer, but look at what Tom Brady's doing with the Bucks, who weren't in the playoffs last year, and how bad the Patriots.
You're right. No, players matter.
I'm in like an overall agreement of what you're saying, but like it was about Tomlin specifically. Like I get your overarching statement, but you're like, yeah, Tomlin's overrated, but then you're like, yeah, but they all are. So that kind of like almost like washes it in my eyes of what you're saying. Like Tomlin has been given way too big of a leash and too much credit for too long. The decision making that's happened this season seems like the most dramatic disconnect I've seen, at least of him, or probably a lot of head coaches.
He was better last year in an 8-8 season because he didn't have Ben than he has been this year by a wide margin.
I agree with that statement.
You think he's gone?
No, I don't like Fichtner though. And I know a lot of Steelers fans are with me, and a lot of Steelers fans think it's a bad decision. I more don't like about Ben is keeping these OCs. Arians was around for too long. He's the reason why Ben missed so many games. Dropping him back to pass so many times with a terrible offensive line was not smart. And then Todd Haley was a bad experiment. And now Randy Fichtner, just like I was calling out plays yesterday. I know if I see it, that the guys that spend the whole week watching all the film are definitely calling them out. So it's not a good combo. I think Fichtner should be gone, but he won't be gone until Ben is. So
there you go. Yeah. How many pass attempts yesterday? 68 or something like that?
Yeah, and the most completions in an NFL game ever.
How many calls to the police do you think were made during that game for your loudness? How loud?
You know what? After the first quarter, there wasn't much. I was pretty quiet.
I say, those meters at like baseball games, like, come on, crowd, get loud. And they got the meter. Bogman's just been like through the roof.
Yeah. After the first quarter, I was pretty quiet.
Yeah. Look, I think that, I think Welsh put it perfectly. This was max effort. Everything went right for the Browns. And pretty much this is what the Steelers were. And I think it was like a false sense of security because the second half of that Colts game where they turned it on and they were able to come back and things broke right there and they made good plays. And I think people kind of went, oh, okay, so they are going to be okay. And I think from a betting standpoint too, I can't imagine like how that.
And congrats, Cleveland fans. I give Cleveland and Cincinnati a bunch of crap and everything, but I said, and Welsh made fun of me for saying it, when Baltimore beat Cleveland and you could see those fans crying, that hurt me. Like, I get it. It sucks. I'm a Steelers fan, but I also watch other sports, and I know when your team doesn't make it for a long time, how much it blows. So congrats to Browns fans. Most of you, if you DM me or sent me a tweet, Antoine Malone, then no. I mean, pound sand. He's a Bengals fan. Just happy that the Steelers lost. Win a playoff game in 30 years.
Fan, you know how much hate I've gotten in the last 2 decades about just people who just hate
a lot of it's from me. Right.
Most of it's from you. But like, as you always said to me, I hate you the most, Joe, because you're a reasonable Patriots fan.
Yeah.
And you're the same as me. You get it. You see the deficiencies. I said on this show with you guys last year when the Patriots lost, and I said, they're going to lose to the Titans. I'm telling you right now, it's going to happen. And they did. I know when my team is falling apart and I can recognize it. And I know good Tom Brady, bad Tom Brady, and all the other in between. And speaking of Tom Brady, we come back, we're going to talk more about him because he's going to be advancing as will be Drew Brees and a few other big time quarterbacks here. So stick around. More Black Book on Brawl Network when we come back. Don't go anywhere.
Black.
All right, welcome back, everybody, to the Fantasy Black Book right here on the Brawl Network. Joe Pisapia, the Welsh, and Scott Bogman talking football with you. And by the way, it's a new year, so it should be a new you. And it's time to go out there and get yourself a little Manscaped. That's right, because Manscaped's got big news. They just released their new cologne. I just got a little sample of it myself because the Brawl Network people here, they know a few guys, and they sent me a little thing. I got to tell you, it's pretty good. I did the little squirt, and a little, how is that? And not bad. So if you want to perhaps wash off the stench of the NFL season for your team, why not use a little Manscaped cologne? So go over there to manscaped.com and go check it out. Also makes a nice present. As we all know, there's Valentine's Day right around the corner and a few other holidays bearing around this new year. So go to manscaped.com, use the code BRAWL, and get yourself all set up and smelling good for a new year. That's right. You want to smell good for the playoffs. Now, speaking of smelling good, Tom Brady, smelling all right. Tampa advances, using all the weapons, spreading the ball around, as we continue to say every week. He's really doing a good job there. And look, it wasn't a perfect performance. They still struggle in the red zone. Our guy Leonard Fournette had a great game. Boggs, I mean, if there's nothing more infuriating than that, I don't know what is, because this, of course, doesn't help us at all. But Welsh, I mean, outside of the Taylor Heineke, fun storyline of this guy going out there and playing his heart out, making some great plays, that 4-yard extension for the pylon was tremendous. Washington proved that they deserve to be there. If Washington gets a real quarterback play next year, I think Washington is at least an 8-win team, if not more. And I thought Chase Young after the game with Brady was great, asking for his jersey, all that stuff. So what were your big takeaways from the Tampa-Washington contest?
I think like Washington in general, like you say, just a quarterback. I think they're a couple pieces away, and I say this in a positive way. They're a couple pieces away from being like an elite team. Like,
that's not untrue.
They had a good quarterback. They could be 8-8, but it's like I look at them and I go, man, you got Antonio Gibson. Give me like a veteran, even if you want to keep McKissick in there, but like maybe a veteran pounding back with Gibson, and then give me like an Allen Robinson. Go get Allen Robinson to be beside Terry McLaurin, and then you got Logan Thomas, and then a good QB. That defense is set now. You've got a lot of great offensive pieces. You would go from 8-8 to, I think, a powerhouse in the NFC if they were there, but. On that opposite end, I mean, I think the Bucs are that. Mike Evans pulled through, had 10 targets, went over 100. Antonio Brown obviously pissed off Bogman getting the score. All of the wide receiver pieces were in. Leonard Fournette played solid, probably going to, continue causing such an issue in how we view that running game. But Tampa Bay is, I think, a total package. Actually, you know what? More that I think about this, all those moves I just said for Washington, get a good quarterback, get a complimentary running back, and a good wideout. I think they could beat Tampa Bay. I think that's who they could get to be.
I don't think you're wrong. I think they have that upside, and I think Ron Rivera's done a tremendous job. By the way, is Ron Rivera now like the longest tenured head coach in the East? Is that going to be as of today? We'll talk about more of that later in the show with some breaking news that just happened, obviously a little while ago as we're recording this. But Boggs, when you look at Tampa and Fournette, I made this statement. I want to see how you feel. I'd love to see Leonard Fournette next year with the Seattle Seahawks, because I feel like the Seahawks got away a little bit this year from their identity, and they used to run the football a lot more. And I think the way they played defense at the end, they got so predictable on offense. It was just a terrible look. We'll get to them in a second. But Fournette showed you yet again, when you give him the carries, Fournette can be viable. And I think next year he will be viable somewhere else. Do you agree? We don't have Bogman.
You're muted, Bogman.
I am muted. That's my bad. There was a weird alarm going off across the street, so I muted myself.
You know what we should have done? We should have let Bogman just keep going and see how long, and we just be like, yeah. Right.
Point, Bogman.
You know what? So many people, when I started talking about Leonard Fournette, fast forwarded anyway. They didn't miss anything. So, look, I think. You don't want Fournette in Seattle. They use multiple backs, and that's just what he's coming from here now. So you want him to go to Pittsburgh, where he can be the main guy. But that's where
Fournette is that Washington back. I didn't mean to jump in here, but I'll tell you.
I thought about that, but I think that's too big of a financial investment. Like, I don't think they would go that route. Like, I think
he's if you're not going to be that expensive
and a quarterback, there's no money for Fournette too. I don't.
He's just selfish. He's going to want a team that's going to let him have the carries too. So we'll see where he goes. But this was, look, Tampa Bay is formidable, and I think Washington, like Welsh said, is just a piece or two away. Obviously, being quarterback is the hardest piece to fill in, but they might be a Kirk Cousins away from being a pretty good team.
I was about to say, would a Cousins or someone like that be enough?
Yeah, but they gave up on him. So, it's a little too late for that. Also, I think Taylor Heineke should get a look to be a backup somewhere, a true backup, not a, third string option. He looked good. He left it out there. He separated his shoulder, came in back in the game, was playing the tough guy role. Like, I really like what I saw out of him in this game too. But I mean, Mike Evans is just dominant. He wasn't even 100% and he was torching those guys, and Washington's defense is pretty good this year. Godwin is also healthy and AB is dangerous too. This team is peaking at the absolute right time. I don't see a way that the Saints beat them this week. So,
all right. Look, I think that they just showed at the end, unfortunately, that Tampa just overmatched them from a personnel standpoint, and I still think Tampa is a work in progress even after this week. There were some things in that game, despite how good the stats look, that you look back and some of the red zone issues and things like that. I just wonder, are we finally going to get them to beat New Orleans? Is the team that has basically whooped them. They whooped them in the first week. They whooped them in Tampa. Are they going to whoop them 3 times in a row, guys? Like, Welsh, do you
whoop their weight in Wildcats?
I'm just saying, like, do you think that this is just their kryptonite, and for some reason, they just own Tampa? Because so far, Welsh, this year they have.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that's a possibility, but I think all of the momentum is on Tampa Bay's side. I just think they're the more complete team. New Orleans played a fine game, however you want to call it. They didn't do a whole bunch on offense. They did maintain Alvin Kamara, not trying to jump into that game, the slime game, the Nickelodeon game. But I think
that's the second time you're pushing for. We'll do it next because you're so excited about the slime. SpongeBob has Welsh all fired up right now.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's on my TV all the time, so I can relate to a lot of this stuff. But yeah, no, I think I agree with Bogman. I think Tampa is the team right now. I mean, we're taking out the teams that didn't play and looking at Green Bay, but I think Tampa Bay, the role that they're on right now, they're dangerous, and I think
they are dangerous.
I think this is the game they take. I think they take New Orleans in this one, even though they've already dropped 2.
I'm starting to feel that way too, Boxy. You think that this maybe be turning for them a little bit, like they're starting to really click? Again, not complete, but New Orleans isn't exactly blowing the doors off last few weeks either.
No, New Orleans did not play a great game. Chicago blew it more than I think New Orleans won it. So, I just think Tampa Bay is peaking right now. Like we said before, it is the right time to peak. So, they're playing decent on defense too. I mean, Jamel Dean is clearly the weakness there. They targeted him about 1 million times, and he got pass interference calls and all that stuff. But maybe Davis will be back for them next week. We'll see.
All right, let's jump into the Nickelodeon game, and thank God this game was on Nickelodeon, because otherwise it'd be almost unwatchable completely. Because I did flip over right before the Michael Thomas touchdown, so I saw the slime, saw the whole thing.
Who called that, by the way?
You.
Touchdown. That's right.
That's you. Yeah, it's you, buddy. You did it. But I'll tell you what. The moment, the back-to-back plays with Wims, I think kind of sums up this game, because Wims makes this incredible catch, right, on the sideline. It's like, oh my God. And then all of a sudden they're fired up. Then they're running this trick play. Trubisky's out, lined up as a wide receiver. He comes back around, throws the ball downfield. There's Wims wide open. Wide open, right through the breadbasket. It was just crushing, and you could sense that was it. The game was over. If I was betting this game in game, that would be like, nope, they're not coming back from that. I can tell you right now, that was the moment where you could have turned the worm a little bit, and you could have had a moment where all of a sudden you build on that and the momentum changes because you've shocked them. No, and Trubisky was unable to recover from there. Trubisky didn't play well last week. He didn't play well this week. Those were the measuring stick games. Also, by the way, CJ Gardner-Johnson, what is he saying to guys? Because he got Wims to punch him in the face a few weeks ago and get thrown out. He got Anthony Miller kicked out of a game. What's going on? What's this guy saying to people?
Michael Thomas and him got in a fist fight.
Michael Thomas and him got into a fist fight.
He's a jerk. Like there's not a
I know, nice, but I want to mic this guy up. I want to know what he's saying that gets these guys so mad.
Wim said he spit in his face. That's why he went over and sucker punched him. That's
unbelievable.
Can I ask you real quick? Because I know Bogman gets really mad about this type of stuff. He's always gotten mad. No, not the spinning stuff. But like anytime the games aren't in normal places, probably more specifically, like when it's on Facebook or something like baseball, Bogman would get infuriated. This game being on Nickelodeon, what did that do for you, Bog?
I don't understand why we need to what are they going to do next? Start having cigarette commercials on? Like, do we need to ingratiate all the children with football this early? Like, they're going to like it or they're not going to like it. It doesn't need to interrupt their cartoons as far as I'm concerned. But as long as it's simulcast.
Do you like the slime cannon for the touchdown?
No, I think it's stupid. I have zero shares of children, so maybe it's fun for them. I don't know. But
did your kids watch Welsh?
Huh? No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the
what did they do? By the way,
was it more for the adults or for the children?
Cordero Patterson also dropped the first F-bomb on Nickelodeon ever live on TV.
That's not true because there was definitely a couple shows where they were cursing all the time.
And people were out there memeing, being like Cordero Patterson.
Yeah, I forgot The Wire was on Nickelodeon. My bad. So
F these kids.
There's that.
It's okay because Omar was selling drugs to.
Yeah, well, so there's that unrated episode of Phineas and Ferb where they just completely just.
I did like somebody, and I have no context to what episode this was from, but it was like SpongeBob had made like a little clone of himself or something, and it was like a grayed out looking SpongeBob, and it said, people trying to explain Manti Te'o's girlfriend to the audience on Nickelodeon. That was, but yeah, like being on Nickelodeon had, it did nothing for me.
It was,
and also Sean Payton getting the slime after the game too,
I thought that some of that stuff was funny and like uniquely different, but the idea of being like, hey, let's go to Nickelodeon to do this up I'm just shocked that they would do it. If the game
was only on Nickelodeon, then I would have been very upset. But
the simulcast is the whole point. I think you're going to see this again, and I think you're going to see a lot more stuff like this because
before the Steelers played the Bengals on Monday Night Football, they had the Muppets introduce the game. Remember? Because I
think the Muppets were playing for the Steelers the last couple of weeks. I think you can make but seriously, look, this game was a dog. Let's be honest. It just was 21-9 was the final here. Good to see Thomas catch his first touchdown of the year. It's great. Michael Thomas got a touchdown. Leonard Fournette had a great game. What a wonderful time to be alive.
Like 2018 all over again.
All right, finish the sentence here.
Get MVPs right. They gave Mitch Trubisky the MVP.
So Mitch Trubisky, where will he be next year? Does he go the way of Jameis Winston?
The Chicago Bears.
Okay, so he comes back. So they don't go Winston and Mariota on him. They don't jettison him because I think they do.
They tried that. They tried that with Foles, and he won the job back. So no, he's there.
I think he comes back. I think it makes a lot of sense. I think there's some other quarterback hungry places that some of those guys, they're going to get some big money. And I think the Bears can look at it as a situation of they know what he's at. They know where he's
franchise him for $30 million. They got it. I don't think they want to do that.
Oh my God!
I think I'm going to just do the number at you because that's going to be the number.
I mean, maybe, but I don't know if they're going to need to franchise him. Okay, let me ask you: how many other?
If they want him, they have to. That's going to be. It's either long-term extension or franchise him. I saw it this morning. So,
well, can't he sign a 1-year deal or a 2-year deal?
He could.
But that's my point. That's my point. But who else is out there being like, oh,
Washington, maybe? I mean,
no, they're not going to want Trubisky.
I don't know. Is Trubisky the next Tannehill?
That's what I think. I think he could be.
I think he might be.
But if he's going to be Tannehill, he needs to go somewhere and sit. And I don't think he's going to do that.
I think that's probably fair. And I don't think he's going to go somewhere and sit either. All right, let's move on to another one here. Let's do Baltimore and Tennessee. Lamar Jackson gets his first win as a playoff quarterback. And, that first year, he came in as a rookie at the end of the season. I don't know why people give him a hard time about that loss. And was it to the Chargers, if memory serves, right? And last year, you give him a hard time. He was MVP. They had a 2-week layoff there. He came out flat, and that team got absolutely pwned. I love this, though, because this is feeling like a rivalry, and I feel like we don't have enough of them anymore in the NFL. They're really hot. These two teams don't care for each other. These two teams want to dance on each other's emblems in the middle of the field. These two teams have no love lost. I like that. I miss this in my sports. I grew up with Mets Cardinals being a thing. I grew up with Yankee Red Sox being a thing. I grew up in the NFL with teams that hate each other, but it just feels like that's kind of all, dwindled away. This feels hot right now to me, Boggs. And I want to credit the Baltimore defense. They played great. They did a phenomenal job of stopping Derrick Henry. They had 20 Ravens had solo tackles. That's a huge number of individuals just stepping up and making big tackles and big plays. And honestly, I look at everything that the Ravens did was right. And they brought the Titans down to their level. They ran the football, they grinded out, they played defense, and that's their recipe for winning games. So what was your takeaway? I know you hate the Ravens, but I mean, what was your takeaway here from this game against Tennessee? Because I thought they did a great job of stopping Derrick Henry for sure.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of the Titans either. So, you make it personal, and that's what Harbaugh did with these guys. Yeah. And it's so crazy to me that John Harbaugh is such a better coach than his brother.
I know, right?
It's crazy to me.
Well, I mean, think of it this way, too. Like Michael Jackson was way more talented than some of his brothers too.
Yeah, that's very true.
There's always that one brother.
But John couldn't play. He didn't play in the NFL, and Jim played in the NFL for a decent amount of time. But and maybe that's it. Maybe that's the difference. I don't know, but. Baltimore looked great in this game. I mean, we had people calling that Lamar Jackson run the best run they've ever seen by a quarterback because he should have been sacked and he turned it into a 49-yard touchdown. It was incredible. And that's a difference that Lamar will bring to your team. But, with Tennessee right now, they definitely backed in the playoffs a little bit, specifically on defense. They can't stop much. Marquise Brown,
pass rush either, too, which is terrible.
They have nothing as far as pass rush goes. So worse than Seattle in that territory for sure, especially over the last 6 weeks. But yeah, I mean, Tennessee is one-dimensional right now. It's AJ Brown, it's Derrick Henry, and that's it. Corey Davis got banged up here. A couple good throws to Ferkser, but if they can't run with Derrick Henry, everything has to play off of that. And he didn't get going, and neither did the offense. That's why they only wound up with 13 points here. So
how worried are either one of you guys, though, with just the complete backstep as a passer that Lamar Jackson continues to take? It's like, I hate it because everybody took the narrative of like, oh, it won his first playoff game, and he's a gamer and stuff. But the decision-making he still makes in some of the passes, I just don't know if he's not fully developed. I don't know.
I think it's 50% him. I think it's 50%. He doesn't have wide receivers that can get open on their own. And I think that is just a thing you're going to have to fix. This is where I want Allen Robinson to be. This is where I want Adam Thielen to be. I want somebody who's really reliable, that can get open, run good routes, and be a game changer there. And that, when Lamar runs, turns a sack into a 49-yard gain, that's the kind of things that are just backbreaking in these playoff games. Like you just do not recover from moments like that, unfortunately, if you're the other team. And that's what makes him so dangerous and so great. But Hollywood Brown's not that guy. Andrews is a tight end, a good one, but like they don't have Boykin and Dez Bryant and all. No, none of these guys can be that. Before I make that call on how much he's regressed as a quarterback or hasn't developed, I should say, probably more accurately. I want to see him get a Terry McLaurin. I want to see him get somebody that's like, that's a good wide receiver, and then you can pin it on him. And then that's where I'm at. Where are you at with that, Box? Because I think that's a fair question, Welsh.
Well, yeah, and I think Welsh brought up a great point too in the fact that he's just not completely developed as a passer. He can make every throw. We've seen it. That's why I liked him coming out of Louisville, and I rolled my eyes, which is the Welsh's favorite when I do. When people were saying that he should change positions because it's so ridiculous. The guy can make all the throws. He's just not comfortable making all the throws. And Baltimore limited him way too much this year. They wanted him to throw a little bit more and not be himself. And that really set him back a little bit because he's got to be able to go out there and take that ball for a 49-yard touchdown. If he wants, he's got to have the ability to do that. And I think they wanted to kind of rein him in a little bit. And I think the better they got moving throughout the year is the more they let those reins off and let him do what he's going to do. And we've seen Marquise Brown step up over the last couple of weeks. I think he's getting better. I think him and Lamar are developing a real big chemistry here, which is dangerous. I mean, they're going to be hard to beat. So Baltimore's looking really good right now. The 4th and 2 punt was stunning to me. You have Derrick Henry ran for 2,000 yards, and you're going to punt on 4th and 2 when you're on the other guy's cowardice. And other teams have to learn from this. You have to learn from another team's mistakes. Pittsburgh and Tennessee didn't go for it on 4th and 2 down late, and they both lost. Yeah. Go for those. The numbers are in your favor. They have to. It just absolutely have to. All right, we're going to need a break. We come back. We're going to wrap up the rest of the games, including what I thought was the most entertaining game of the weekend, which is Indianapolis and Buffalo. That was a fun football game, and one of the least entertaining, the Rams and the Seahawks. And I've got some feelings. I got all the feels, as the kids like to say, about
the Rams right now that I'd love to unburden myself of. So stick around. More Fantasy Black Book right after this. Welcome back, everybody, to Fantasy Black Book here on the Brawl Network. And of course, we're coming to you as one of our sponsors is DraftKings. So we always want you hanging out and playing. Now, look, there's still a few weeks left to NFL. And look, you can go to DraftKings right now, set up an account, make a deposit, and DraftKings will credit your account with a free entry if you use this code. And that is dkng.co/brawlpod. That's how you go play. So go to dkng.co/brawlpod, and they will match your deposit there. Minimum 5 deposit. See DraftKings.com for details. Eligibility restrictions when applied, but there's still plenty of football left. And of course, there's NBA on DraftKings, and MLB's right around the corner. And we'll be talking MLB pretty soon here because the Fantasy Baseball Black Book is out on Amazon right now, selling well, getting you ready for your fantasy baseball season, which will be upon us very soon. And before it is, though, we still got some more football, including the Indianapolis Buffalo game to talk about. And Josh Allen, great game for him. There was that one Josh Allen moment, though, at the end that almost blew it. That looked like old Josh Allen of 2018 trying to make a big play when he should have just taken a sack and taken the L. And instead, he runs back 30 yards and then basically gives up the football. And I just went, oh, no, you can't undo a great season on this one play, Josh Allen. Luckily, it wasn't the case. Bill's secondary played well, shut down some of their wide receivers. But I'll tell you what, Phillip Rivers took what they gave him, and they gave him the tight ends, and Jack Doyle had a great game. Welsh, do you think that Phillip Rivers should come back again and play with the Indianapolis Colts? Because they look pretty good here to close things out.
I think he does, and I think he should from like an unfinished business standpoint. Like this team was built to, really get to where they were. I mean, I think they would have wanted to go a little bit further, but this team in the construction and build was for this strong defense. They paid up for DeForest Buckner. They had their wideouts, which really took a whole long time. Rivers never got it in with the tight ends. Jonathan Taylor got his feet under. I think they would sit back and they would look as a whole, and the team would want him back, and he would want to take one more run at this because this is close. This is probably one of the better teams Phillip Rivers has run in a while, even into Chargers years. So I think he's back on his own volition, and the team wants him as well, because what are you going to take away from this team that you're going to just be like, oh, this completely backtracked them? I think they can only add to get better at this point. T.Y. Hilton got that connection. I think they can add a piece here, maybe a piece on defense, and I think they'll be as strong going into next year. It's just, Phillip Rivers is a little bit rough in general, and I gotta tell you, man, just Josh Allen is so impressive. It's like the complete inverse of what I think with Lamar Jackson. Like Lamar Jackson is so impressive on the ground, but the strides he hasn't made just make me go like, man, Josh Allen is just a complete opposite, where he can make those runs. He'll make that decision to throw the ball away, can pinpoint throw. But I mean, I don't know.
And it has the athleticism to make a play where there wasn't a play, where things break down, like dead down the goal line, where he just like started to run and then just chucked the ball up there for the touchdown. It was incredible.
There might not be a player in the NFL that I have turned. I'm not gonna say I wasn't like enthralled in him or anything like that.
You weren't. Look, I was on an island. I was on an island with this guy, and I accepted that. But this is why sometimes you got to stick to your guns too. And you're like that on certain players. And you were right about Jefferson this year, and a lot of people were not listening to you. I was, but I think it's important when you do this, when you're an analyst here, that if you believe in something, you stick to it. It might not work the year or two or whatever, but if it doesn't, sometimes we're wrong. Everyone's wrong. But Boggs, I mean, Allen has certainly become an MVP caliber talent. There's no doubt about that. Do you think that Rivers comes back? Do you think he should come back? Or should they say, you know what, let's get out now, because another year in is another year older, and should we just turn the page right away to somebody else?
I mean, it's a tough. Yeah, it's a really, it might be the hardest of all these quarterback calls, because, if you're the team specifically, I mean, I just don't know how much better Rivers is than Brissett. I think they're probably fairly close, but I think because of his experience, you want him to come back, and I think he will give it one more run. So
feels like it.
Yeah, it really feels like it. I mean, and so I think he'll come back. As far as Josh Allen goes, though, I mean, it's fair if you didn't like him coming into the NFL and you do now, because he is a guy, like Welsh said, you can physically see on tape all the development that he's had. He was bailing out so much those first couple seasons, and now he has really learned how to, hit all of his checks and knows when to run, knows when to hold them, knows when to fold them, all of that good stuff for the most part. So losing Zach Moss for the rest of the postseason is going to hurt Buffalo quite a bit, because I'm not the biggest single.
Do we have definitive that Moss is down?
Out.
Okay,
yeah, he's done for the year. So, and so that's going to be difficult. And they're playing what might be the hottest team in the NFL right now in Baltimore.
Well, I keep saying these are the two teams that I think have the best chance to beat the Kansas City Chiefs, and I'll tell you this much: like whoever wins that game, like that, you very well might win the Super Bowl. Like that could be the Super Bowl team who wins. I mean, it's just they're playing their best football, and it's kind of unfortunate that we don't get them in the AFC Championship game together. But somebody's going to make a run here. We'll see what it is. And I'm happy for the Buffalo fan base too. I know it got tight at the end there, but they've been waiting a long time. Their first playoff win since '95. I mean, that is
Buffalo and Cleveland winning playoff games since '94 and '95. Like
that's great. It's good for
the year.
It's been a tough 2020, and that's nice way for some of us to move on and look forward here. All right, let's do the last one here. Rams and Seahawks. Now, look, first off, Wentworth played phenomenal. Cam Akers looked great. This was like that game a couple weeks ago against the Pats on Thursday night, where Akers just answered every question I had about him in one game, and then he did it again this week. And to me, it's just about Akers staying healthy next year. I want to talk about the Seahawks, but before I do, I want to ask this question because it bothers the hell out of me. If Jared Goff could go out there and play, and he did, because he had to, why wasn't the quarterback, the captain of the team, out there starting no matter how hurt he was anyway? How did this fall apart to this extent? Because this feels like Sean McVay has lost confidence in Jared Goff, and I don't feel like that's a hot take. I feel like this is like, hey, he's not really healthy, and he's turning over the ball a ton. Let me see if I can win with this other guy and just running the football. Guys, what do you think? Am I crazy, or is there something to this?
I think it might be the opposite, though, Joe. It might be that Jared Goff is so important to this team that they're not willing to risk him to go out there and hurt himself further than he was by playing in this playoff game. So it might be the opposite way. I mean, we don't know how Sean McVay feels. I understand where you're coming from in that, but I think 50% of that is what you see, and 50% of that is already your hate for Jared Goff. So I get what you're saying, but I think it might be the opposite. But I'm right there with you. If the guy was good enough to play, and they said he threw a ball for 60 yards pre-game, let the guy play.
You're the quarterback. You're the captain. You wear the C for a reason.
Yeah.
Welsh, were you surprised that it was like, okay, when here comes Goff? Like, I was kind of like, I thought Goff was, oh my God, this is like really, he cannot play if he couldn't play in the playoffs. But it seemed more like a coach's decision than a Goff health decision to me.
I mean, it also could have been playing down, if you don't disguise and you don't disclose everything that's going on, you keep a team on their heels. I mean, I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah, maybe.
That have been a tactic that kind of worked. I mean, they took this game. The Seahawks might have been prepping across a couple things. Maybe it was not worrying so much about press on the wideouts if you've got a secondary quarterback. Maybe it was lots of blitz. I mean, the game plan could have changed by tactically not really revealing what you're going to do with it. We actually got an interesting look at both Goff and McVay just because of Hard Knocks and everything that was going on, that I'm just not sure McVay comes across to me like a guy that would press his quarterback in a place that he wouldn't want to be. And I'm not like, I feel like
he didn't press Todd Gurley either, and that didn't work out. So
yeah, I guess I feel like those two are a bit in sync, that I think some stuff might have been played a little bit up to keep. I mean, this playoff time. So I think that might have been a little bit more on it.
All right. You're NFC West guy. So give it to me straight here. I think we are obviously, you look at what happened with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and we're not surprised. I mean, we kind of saw the writing on the wall here a little bit, but equally disappointing and equally falling apart as we bookend the show here with this is the Seattle Seahawks, and where they were to start the year, where this offense was to start the year, and then where they are now, which is one and done in the playoffs. What happened to the Seattle Seahawks?
Defense. I mean, I think it was
well in this second half of the season.
Yeah, they never got it. They never clicked together. That's really what it was.
Great point. They never worked together, because as the defense started to get a little bit better and Bogman stopped picking on them so much, the offense stopped working. Defenses learned how to cover and work. Think of how much run we gave DK Metcalf.
Is that what you're saying?
I'm also saying, think of DK Metcalf at one point in a decent part of the season. We were like, this is probably the best guy in the NFL. He's the best receiver. And he got quieted. It was not shut down, but proverbially shut down on the second half where he wasn't remotely close to where he was. So the offense got stuttered while the defense came up. They never clicked together, which is super odd. And, I was thinking about this as you were talking with this game. Had you, watched Hard Knocks and maybe the first, game or two of the season, or even just preseason, and skipped the entire season and then ran to right now, this Rams loss doesn't feel as impactful as it is right now, nor does the Seahawks, I think, because I think the Rams had a lot going for them coming into this year as far as the defense and the offensive weapons. Yeah, exactly. So this doesn't look like a shock to me if you only think about and you skip the entire season. But looking at this now, it's classic Rams and how they played all year. They play up to competition. They play down. They can't maintain long-term. And the Seahawks have been a disappointment. So I think the Rams are gone next weekend. I don't think they can maintain this. And I think had Seattle been able to carry momentum, they might have been the most dangerous NFC team, but they kind of had the Steelers syndrome, unfortunately, where they really carried that downward trend on the back half of the year into the playoffs and they couldn't recover.
They got to run the football more. I mean, I'm sorry.
Pete Carroll made some big statement like after they lost, like, hey, next year, this is what we're going to do in 2021. It's going to be about maintaining and running the football. And everyone's just like, okay.
Well, I mean, they used to run the football, but they've been spinning their wheels with the running back position ever since Marshawn Lynch was done. They literally spinning their wheels with a carousel of different guys every year.
And also they were winning by passing the ball earlier in the year. The let Russ cook stuff was happening, and teams caught on. They adjusted, and they just couldn't make a counter back to it. And I was really
just like the Steelers, Boggs. Yeah. It's the same thing. You can't do this long. You can't do this the entire season. You've got to
not have a team catch on.
Absolutely. And not in January. Yeah. And that's the difference.
Especially not January.
That is the difference. All right. 2-minute drill starts right now. Doug Peterson is gone. That's right. 3 years after winning a Super Bowl, Doug Peterson is gone. And we talked about it on this show. I seem to be the only person who seems to remember Doug Peterson being the punchline of bad coaching in the NFL. Then he won a Super Bowl, and all of a sudden he's this untouchable presence. I think they made the right call here because it was either going to be Howie Roseman, the GM, who would have had a job tomorrow if somebody got rid of him, especially with all the GM openings, or Peterson. You made the right call. You move on for Peterson. You keep the young GM who's won a Super Bowl already and probably, was also the guy that drafted Jalen Hurts. And I think that you look forward. But now the question is, the coach gone, who's next? Is Wentz gone or is Wentz staying now? Welsh, we'll start with you.
Wentz has got to go. I mean, I don't know how they do it yet, but I mean, you got Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is everything. So I 100% think Wentz seems like the guy. Go over to Washington, get Wentz over there to recover.
How do you do that though in division? You can't.
I know. No, you're right. You're absolutely right with division. You're right.
I mean, that's the only. Honestly, if I'm Carson Wentz, I want to go to Denver. I want to go play with all those wide receivers.
He'll probably be a stupid 49er at the end of the year if we can just let's get Garoppolo, move him out, and they'll take Wentz and everything else.
Who knows? Oh, maybe the Patriots will get in there too. I mean, that could definitely be a spot for him. I mean, they have the cap room. God knows they're going to have the cap room to do it.
That's a great call, actually. Wentz in New England might make a lot more sense than anything else.
He's a good guy. I mean, he's a very likable guy. Does a lot of good things. You could sell him to the community.
This had to happen after seeing what happened in that last game. And I honestly don't think it was going to happen up until the last game of the year when they really tanked at the end and the players got pissed. He lost the locker room at that point. Up to that point, I think Peterson was okay to stay in Philly. But after that, he had completely lost the locker room. And it didn't make any sense to keep him. And this is kind of the point that I was trying to, say before, as far as all coaches are overrated. 2017, any team in the NFL would have hired Doug Peterson. He's coming off a Super Bowl win with Nick Foles as his quarterback. And now he's fired. In 3 seasons, he's gone. So that's kind of what I mean is a coach can't win it for you, but they can lose it for you. And that's good.
Exactly. Your moment of zen. We will leave on that because I can't say it better. In the meantime, you could follow him on Twitter at Bogman Sports for more zen quotes. You can follow the Welsh. Also, check out Prospect One too. His baseball prospect podcast is out there. Is heating up as well. This is that time of year. And you can follow me at Joe Pisapia 17. Again, we're coming to you courtesy of the Brawl Network. Go follow us on Twitter at Brawl22. And look, this is a fun start here to the playoffs. A lot of good games next week. We'll be back again to break them all down. But that'll do it for us today. For Bogman and Welsh, I'm Joey P. We'll see you